In November 2003, off the southwestern coast of Australia, a research team tagged a healthy 9-foot female great white shark and released her into open water. She was part of a large-scale scientific tagging project designed to track the movements, migration patterns, and behavior of one of the ocean's most studied yet least understood animals. The tag, attached to her body, was a precision instrument built to record ambient water temperature and depth at regular intervals. The researchers expected ordinary data, 4 months of migration records, depth readings, temperature variations as the shark moved between warmer coastal shallows and colder offshore waters. What they got instead was something that stopped them cold the moment they saw it. Something that, even years later, marine biologists describe as one of the most disturbing data sets ever recovered from a tracking device in the history of ocean science. The tag washed ashore on an Australian beach, found by a beachcomber 2.5 miles from where it had originally been attached to the shark. It was the data inside the tag that made everyone's blood run cold. Because the data did not describe a shark living out her ordinary life. Described the final moments of something that had been the apex predator of coastal waters, meeting something larger, faster, and more powerful in the darkness below. 4 months after tagging, at 4 a.m. on Christmas Eve, the tag recorded an abrupt and violent change. The shark, which had been swimming normally near the surface, suddenly plunged. The depth reading dropped to 1,903 feet, in what the data record shows as a near instantaneous descent. 580 meters straight down, into water so dark and cold that almost nothing from the surface world ever reaches it. At the same moment the descent began, the ambient temperature surrounding the tag spiked. Not gradually, not slowly. In the space of a single recorded interval, the temperature jumped from 46 degrees Fahrenheit to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. A 32-degree surge, instantaneous in the data, and then steady, holding at 78 degrees all the way down into the deep. Stable, warm, biological. Filmmaker David Riggs, who had been hired to document the tagging project, was among the first people to review the recovered data. He later described his reaction simply. He said he was absolutely blown away. The question that came to his mind, and to the mind of everyone else who examined the numbers, was the same. What could do this to a 9-foot great white shark? What in the ocean is large enough, powerful enough, and fast enough to take an animal of that size without leaving a single trace? Before any answer to that question can land with its full weight, you have to understand exactly what was lost. Not the movie version of a great white shark, the real animal. Female great white sharks grow substantially larger than males. Adults regularly exceed 16 feet in length and can weigh more than 4,000 pounds. These are documented measurements of real individuals, animals built from 250 million years of evolutionary refinement, constructed almost entirely around the mechanics of hunting and killing large prey. The 9-foot shark that disappeared that December morning was not a juvenile. She was a fully capable apex predator. Her teeth were serrated along the edges, designed not simply to puncture, but to slice, the way a blade differs from a spike. Multiple rows of replacement teeth sit behind the active front row, rotating forward automatically when working teeth break or wear down. A great white shark produces tens of thousands of teeth across a lifetime and never runs short of them. Her senses had been honed by 16 million years of continuous refinement. 16 million years. Great white sharks were hunting in the world's oceans before the genus Homo existed, before most of the megafauna of the prehistoric world had even evolved. They survived the mass extinction event that ended the non-avian dinosaurs. They watched entire ecosystems collapse and rebuild and collapse again while they kept swimming. In those 16 million years, evolution produced a sensory system that still challenges researchers to fully explain. Great whites detect the faint electrical fields produced by the muscle contractions of other animals using specialized organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini. They can detect blood at concentrations of 1 part per million, which translates practically to identifying a single drop dissolved across an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Their lateral line, a network of sensory cells running the full length of the body, detects pressure changes and vibrations produced by a distressed animal from distances that seem almost impossible. And adult great white sharks, for as long as marine biologists have studied them seriously, were understood to have no natural predators. None. Nothing in the ocean targeted them. That was not a guess. It was the conclusion supported by everything researchers had ever directly observed. The great white was untouchable, until that tag hit the seafloor at nearly 2,000 feet, recording temperatures that had no business being that warm at that depth. When the research team laid out the full chronological record from the recovered device, the first 4 months looked exactly as expected. Clean, consistent, unremarkable data. The rhythm of a healthy, active great white going about her life. 4 months of ordinary. And then the hard stop. The temperature spike from 46 to 78 degrees was not measuring the ocean anymore. At nearly 2,000 feet below the surface, the water temperature in that region would be close to freezing, far colder even than the 46 degrees the tag had been recording near the surface. The tag was not registering ocean water at the moment of that spike. It was registering the environment immediately surrounding it. The warmth surrounding the tag at that depth, steady and sustained, was internal body temperature. The heat produced by metabolism, by living muscle, by active digestion, the tag had been swallowed. And whatever swallowed it was producing warmth in a way that the vast majority of marine life simply cannot do. This single fact immediately narrowed the field of possible explanations. The overwhelming majority of sea creatures are ectothermic. Their internal temperature tracks the temperature of the water surrounding them. A large fish swallows the tag, and the temperature reading stays unchanged. A giant squid takes it down, same result. Even most shark species, despite their powerful physiology, are fundamentally cold-blooded. Whatever consumed that tag was warm, measurably and consistently warm. And it was large enough not just to swallow the tag, but to have swallowed the entire 9-foot shark the tag was attached to. And it could dive to nearly 2,000 feet. 3 requirements simultaneously. Warm-blooded or near warm-blooded. Enormous. Capable of deep ocean diving. The number of animals in the world's oceans that satisfy all 3 at once is very, very small. The first candidate researchers turned to was the orca. If you want to understand why marine biologists immediately placed killer whales at the top of their suspect list, you need to understand one specific fact. Orcas are the only animals on Earth with a repeatedly and scientifically documented history of successfully hunting and killing great white sharks. Not folklore. Real scientific evidence consisting of filmed encounters, analyzed carcasses, peer-reviewed studies, and long-term tracking data. Nowhere is that evidence more extensively documented than off the coast of South Africa, where 2 male orcas known as Port and Starboard became the subject of intense scientific attention starting around 2017. Named for the unusual directions in which their dorsal fins collapsed, Port's to the left and Starboard's to the right, these 2 animals were first sighted near Luderitz in 2009 and gradually became notorious for what they were doing to the great white shark population around Gansbai, once considered one of the most reliable places on Earth to observe great whites. Their hunting method was documented in research published in the African Journal of Marine Science. Working together, the 2 orcas would target large sharks, maneuver them into an inverted position, and trigger tonic immobility, a temporary paralyzed state that many shark species enter when flipped upside down. The shark would stop resisting entirely, and then the orcas would move in with a level of efficiency that researchers described with stunned admiration. What they discovered, the orcas were actually targeting shocked, even experienced marine scientists. Port and Starboard were not consuming the entire shark. They were extracting specific organs with a precision that seemed almost surgical. The target was the liver. A great white shark's liver is an extraordinary organ, sometimes comprising nearly a third of the animal's total body weight and densely packed with oils, fats, and energy-rich compounds, including squalene. Dead sharks washed ashore in the Gansbai area with clean openings near the pectoral region where the liver had been removed, while the rest of the body remained largely untouched. Dr. Alison Towner, a senior white shark biologist with Marine Dynamics, documented these events in detail and noted that the precision involved demonstrated intelligence, coordination, and learned behavior operating at a level few predators anywhere on Earth can match. Research published in 2024 revealed that Starboard had even learned to perform these hunts entirely alone, killing a 2.5-meter great white and removing its liver in under 2 minutes without any assistance. The psychological impact on the great white shark population was immediate and dramatic. Whenever Port and Starboard entered an area, the sharks vanished, not gradually, almost immediately. Tagged sharks abandoned feeding grounds they had returned to consistently for years. False Bay, where great white sharks had been reliably observed for decades, recorded an absence of the species beginning in 2017 that researchers directly attributed to the presence and activity of these 2 orcas. Similar avoidance patterns have been documented in California near the Farallon Islands and in other coastal ecosystems. Great white sharks, animals humans imagined as unstoppable, are genuinely, documentably afraid of killer whales. They flee. They change long-established behavioral patterns. They calculate somehow that the encounter is not one they can survive. So when Australian researchers faced the tracking tag data from the missing shark, orcas seemed like the obvious answer. The evidence appeared to fit. Orcas are present in Australian waters. They are warm-blooded mammals. They are fully capable of killing large sharks. But then the data started breaking the theory apart. The first problem was behavioral. Orcas do not typically swallow great white sharks whole. The documented pattern involves removing specific organs and leaving the carcass. Yet the tracking tag appeared to remain inside the predator for an extended period, moving through what the data suggested was full digestion. That implied the 9-foot shark had been consumed almost entirely, which directly contradicted everything known about orca hunting behavior toward great whites. The second problem was depth. The tag descended nearly 2,000 feet and remained there for a sustained period. Orca attacks on great whites occur primarily in shallow coastal zones where coordinated group strategies are easier to execute. A prolonged deep water descent did not fit any documented orca hunting profile. The third problem was the temperature itself. A killer whale's internal body temperature runs between 97 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, close to human body temperature. But the tag recorded a sustained 78 degrees. Warmer than the ocean, yes, confirming the tag was inside something alive, but significantly cooler than what would be expected inside a marine mammal's digestive system. The fourth problem was the silence from other animals. When orcas enter coastal waters where great whites are present, nearby tagged sharks react immediately. They flee. Migration patterns shift. The ecosystem responds. But during the period surrounding this event, nearby tagged sharks continued behaving completely normally. No panic response. No evidence in any data that orcas had entered the region at all. One by one, each piece of the most logical explanation collapsed. And that left researchers facing a possibility they found genuinely unsettling. Because if it was not an orca, then something else had consumed a 9-foot great white shark entirely. The answer required understanding something about great white sharks that is not widely known outside scientific literature. Despite their reputation, great white sharks are not fully cold-blooded. They possess a specialized circulatory adaptation called a rete mirabile, a dense network of blood vessels arranged so that warm blood flowing outward from the active swimming muscles passes directly alongside cold blood returning from the gills. Heat transfers between the two streams. The shark retains its metabolic warmth rather than losing it to the surrounding ocean on every circulatory cycle. This makes great whites what biologists call regionally endothermic. Not warm-blooded in the full mammalian sense, but capable of maintaining core body temperatures significantly above the ambient water around them. In practical terms, a great white typically runs approximately 25 to 27 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than the water it swims through. In well-fed and highly active individuals, that differential is even larger. Apply that knowledge to the tag data. The ocean, where the tagged shark had been swimming, registered approximately 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Add 25 to 27 degrees for the great white's internal differential, and the expected body temperature comes out to roughly 71 to 73 degrees Fahrenheit. The tag recorded 78 degrees. The difference, 5 to 7 degrees above the expected baseline, closes almost entirely when you account for individual variation in the elevated metabolic state of a large shark that has just made a significant kill and is actively digesting a substantial meal. The temperature reading was not just broadly consistent with being inside a great white shark's stomach. It was precisely consistent. The numbers landed almost exactly where the biology predicted they should. The depth record aligned as well. Great white sharks have been documented diving to depths exceeding 3,000 feet, significantly deeper than the descent the tag recorded. That plunge was not anomalous behavior. It was well within the normal documented range of the species. And the behavior of a large predator descending to deep, quiet water after a major kill to digest undisturbed is a documented pattern across multiple apex predator species. The researchers reached their conclusion. The 9-foot female great white shark had been consumed by another great white shark, a considerably larger one. Based on the temperature profile, the dive capacity, and the estimated size required to take a 9-foot shark as prey, they placed the predator at approximately 16 to 20 feet in length, potentially weighing between 2,000 and 4,000 pounds. An animal of that size carries a mass advantage that makes the outcome of any direct encounter in open water almost predetermined. 16 feet of great white in full attack mode would have overpowered the smaller shark before she had time to orient and respond. The attack would have been fast, total, and efficient. The kind of violence that leaves no evidence in the water column. No struggle long enough to attract scavengers. No blood trail, just a small electronic device swallowed along with everything else, quietly recording temperature and depth as it descended into the dark. Cannibalism among sharks is not biologically unusual. Many species are opportunistic and will consume smaller individuals of their own kind when conditions align. Sand tiger sharks represent the most extreme version of this, with embryos consuming siblings inside the womb until only the most aggressive survivor remains. Tiger sharks and bull sharks have both been documented consuming smaller sharks of multiple species. But documented cannibalism in adult great white sharks, specific and evidenced and proven through recovered scientific data, was new territory. These were supposed to be the animals at the end of every food chain. The idea that they were hunting and consuming each other in deep water, entirely beyond the reach of human observation, had not been part of the accepted scientific picture. It is now. What this case revealed goes beyond one missing shark and one recovered tag. It exposed something fundamental about how humans construct their understanding of natural systems. We build hierarchies, we rank things, order them, and decide with confidence what sits at the top. Marine ecology was for decades described in terms of a straightforward ladder: great whites at the apex, then everything else in descending order. That model is clean and satisfying, but what this case demonstrates is that ocean ecosystems do not function like ladders. They function like webs. Dense, contextual, constantly shifting networks in which the same animal occupies completely different positions depending on its size, its location, its age, and the specific randomness of which individual encounters which other individual in water that covers 70% of the Earth's surface and reaches depths human technology can barely access. A 9-foot female great white is genuinely the most dangerous thing in the water when she is hunting fur seals in shallow coastal zones. But that same shark, at the wrong depth, in the wrong place, at the wrong moment, encountering a 20-foot individual of her own species in open ocean darkness, is prey. The categories are not fixed. They depend entirely on the specifics of the encounter. This case also delivered a humbling message about the limits of human scientific knowledge. Great white sharks have been tagged, filmed, tracked by satellite, and studied seriously for decades. And yet, until the data from that recovered tag provided direct and irrefutable physical evidence, great white cannibalism in adults was theoretical, suspected by some researchers, discussed occasionally in scientific literature, but never documented, never proven. The behavior had almost certainly been occurring for millions of years in deep water, where no camera ever followed and no researcher ever watched. It left no evidence that the surface world could detect. One small electronic device, roughly the size of a television remote, changed that. A device that recorded temperature and depth as it traveled deeper and deeper into an ocean that had been keeping this secret long before our species existed to ask questions about it. The ocean has no permanent apex, not the great white, not the orca, not anything that swims through that vast darkness. There are apex predators, plural, and their relationships are in constant negotiation, shaped by size and circumstance and the random fact of who is in the water at what moment. The 9-foot shark at the center of this story became prey in a single moment beneath the surface of the Southern Ocean. And in that moment, she also became the most important data point in a scientific mystery that changed what we believed we understood about the deepest, oldest, and least understood ecosystem on this planet.